John's just gone into the cellar. So I dashed upstairs, went through all the rooms up there, not a soul about. About a year ago, I was up in the attics checking things on a Saturday night and was coming down the Jerusalem stairs, which I've been up and down hundreds of times, hundreds. And I was halfway down the stairs when suddenly I was crashing against the wall. I broke my shoulder, my collarbone, and my ribs, and I don't know what happened. I didn't slip, I wasn't pushed, and I didn't fall. I was just suddenly wham. This isn't an evil house as such, but that day something evil definitely did happen. I've never ever experienced that feeling in the house before. It really left me frightened.
Whatever the truth about the claims, these strange events, as documented in the poem about the Littlecote ghost, suggest that the spirit of Wild Will may live on. Whilst Darrell's wretched spirit, 'tis said, as if in magic circle bound, oft by benighted rustics seen, the fatal spot to wander round.
Today, Littlecote House has been converted into a hotel with a capacity for up to 400 guests. Well, those are the paying ones, at least. Some cultures take the view that, being close to the skies, mountains are suffused with magical properties. To them, the highest places in the world are a meeting point between heaven and earth. The ancient Greeks believed the summit of Mount Olympus to be the home of the gods, and Tibetan folklore tells of a mountain Shangri-La where men become immortal in a land of eternal youth. I like the sound of that one. In our second story tonight, mountain rescuers turn to the mystical forces of a cold and forbidding alpine peak.
The Bavarian Alps boast Germany's highest peaks, just the challenge for keen skiers and old friends Steve Swindlehurst and Ian Middleton. In February 1994, they came to Oberammergau to tackle the infamous Mount Laber.
We decided to set out around about 3 o'clock. We looked at it to think that it was going to be about a 25-minute journey from top to bottom. It is a black run. It's powder and piste, and it is quite an awesome run. When we actually got to the top of the mountain, we did actually find that the fog was starting to come in, which lowered the visibility.
Both good skiers, the two men had no fears. Ian, a former Army ski instructor, went first. Despite the weather, the going was good.
My father-in-law told me about the skiing on the Laber, of how difficult it was, and that it was a real challenge and that Ian and I should have a go at it by the end of the holiday. We'd skied down about 150, 200 metres on a fairly steep slope. Halfway down, we realised that it wasn't a piste, that we had obviously made a wrong turning. Then we realised that we were actually off-piste and skiing in terrain which was quite dangerous.
The two men tried to find their way back to the marked-out piste which would lead them down to the safety of the village. But then disaster struck.
What I'd done, in fact, was break the binding clip. So when I tried to lock my ski back down again, it wouldn't close in the boot, and it was unable then to ski any further.
By now well and truly lost, they attempted a new route towards the village, this time on foot.
That was when it started to get a bit hairier. And on a couple of occasions we came to what were in effect sheer cliffs. The snow just dropped away into nothing and you couldn't see the bottom. And the whole time both Ian and myself were getting more dejected that we weren't going to find the slope. It was now getting on towards 6 o'clock in the evening and getting dark.
The rest of the holiday party, waiting in the village below, had become worried. Ian and Steve were now seriously late. Oberammergau's mountain rescue team was scrambled. With the temperature set to plummet to minus 20 degrees that night, the rescuers knew the men would only survive for a few hours.
We went down all the official pistes first of all, then we separated into groups and went down the unofficial trails, all the time calling and shouting to try and find the two men.
But there was no sign of them.
course, the darker it got, the harder it was to see where we were going. And I guess at about 7:30, 8 o'clock, we realised that we weren't going to get down that evening.
By now, the two men had strayed into dense forest.
I don't think we ever got anywhere near that piece.
Well, wherever it is, we're not going to find it now. We're running out of daylight.
Yeah. With all the action, man. What are we going to do now? Build an igloo?
At the time, both Ian and myself didn't really appreciate how cold it was getting. We realised that if we were to sit in one place, wouldn't be the best way around to do it, because you may just sit there and freeze to death.
Surrounded by trees, there was little chance of the men being spotted by the rescuers. But as the search party gave up and headed back to the village, there was someone else concerned for their safety. 70-year-old George Horak has lived in Oberammergau all his life. He's an acknowledged expert on the mountains which encircle the village. But George is also a dowser. By holding his divining rod over a map of the mountains, George claims he can tap into their energy and sense what is happening on the slopes.
Ich konnte mich hineinfühlen in diese Leute.
I could feel what they felt, trapped at night on a mountain in the dark and cold.
Und kalt, wenn's ist.
I could feel the danger they were in and that they were afraid to die.
Dass sie überhaupt überleben. Es ist schnell etwas gebrochen.
The rod showed there was something broken. I didn't know what was broken. It could have been a leg.
Ich wusste nicht, was, ein Bein, oder? Das habe ich als erstes mit festgestellt.
I could also see they were sitting underneath something which had to do with earth. But I could not think for the sake of it what it could be. Some sort of shelter.
Also eine Überdachung oder was in der Nähe.
Suit couple.
Despite their physical exertions, Steve and Ian were starting to suffer from the bitter cold.
They're bound to find us sooner or later.
Yeah, hopefully sooner. Before the gangrene sets in.
Come on, more branches. The important thing is to keep moving.
Man kann sich entweder Erfrierungen holen an verschiedenen Gliedmaßen.
One can get frostbite on feet and toes, on the fingers or nose and ears. The whole body gets so cold and the body temperature sinks so low that the heart stops beating.
Let's have a nip of that brandy, Ian. I'm freezing.
Just a tiny drop. Dinner?
I've lost all feeling in my fingers.
Let's get out and move around. We shouldn't rest in one place for more than 10 minutes at a time anyway.
It's at those times that you begin to feel the worst. You wonder if you're going to survive the cold, if the rescue people are going to find you in the morning.
Alone on the mountain, the men had no idea that a village dowser might be their last hope. George Horak relied on the reactions of his divining rod to guide him, as he plotted what he believed was the men's exact latitude and longitude on the mountain.
I told the mountain rescue team where the men could be found. Then they went back up again. I returned home hoping that the men could be found, even if not in the place where I thought they were.
The
mountain rescue is grateful for all advice and investigates all the information they get. We did not think about if the advice was wrong or right. If we get advice, we follow it up.
Here, come here, quick. There's someone out there. Oi! Oi! Here! Oi! Over here!
See things here?